Welcome to the Great Distraction.
How's it going, everyone? This is The Great Distraction, and today the topic of discussion is propaganda for the people. My name is Ben. With me today are my co-hosts Joe.
Heyo.
Thomas.
Aloha.
And today a very special guest, Glenn.
Howdy.
If this is your first time listening, welcome. We thank you for joining us. The Great Distraction is a podcast that focuses on a vast and random range of topics, and we hope that each episode leaves you with, if nothing else, something to ponder. So today's topic has a lot of depth, has a lot of complexity, and Thomas came up with this one, and he's going to give us a little intro on where we're going with this today.
So the propaganda for the people is basically an idea that we've all kind of talked about in the past. You know, we all believe that a lot of things are sold to us in ways that make us buy it, whether it's food, whether it's, detergents, cars, whatever it is. But there's a much bigger picture, and I think we all understand that there's a bigger picture in the whole media. And I, for one, being an old school punk rocker, have always believed that there's always a purpose to tell people something.
Yeah.
And with the media, especially with a government like we have, there's a lot of that kind of like fed to us in every corner of everywhere we look and see. But I think everybody has a different view of it and a different example. And so I'm interested in, having a discussion today with you guys about how you feel about, I know how I feel. I could talk about that for 9 hours. But, it's a topic that deserves some attention, because if we don't pay attention to the things around us, they're changing in dramatic ways that are not really that helpful for the mass of us.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an awakening, I think, for a lot of people to really look at what's going on in the world today, yesterday, 20 years from now, and say, hey, where's my part, and is there something I can do to make this better? Or do I not want to make it better? Or whatever your standpoint is, I like the topic, and I think that it's a good conversation to have among friends that, kind of see a lot of things the same way, but we all see things a little bit different too.
That's right. And on top of that, I think that this really plays into the whole point behind the name of our podcast.
Absolutely.
The Great Distraction is one and the same with the propaganda that we've been sold as people in this country, and probably in all others in the world in general. Anything that distracts us from the true meaning, or from the hidden hand on the other side, the sleight of hand going on when we're not looking, is exactly what is used as propaganda and marketed to us for this, for whoever stands to gain from it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, most of the time it's for somebody to make money.
Yeah, or gain power, one or the other. Or gain power,
right? which is the media. And when you have power, you have money. Sort of this one giant struggle, And some people can look at it like, when I think about propaganda, I think about even back in, you can go back forever on propaganda, but what pops in my mind is like World War II, and trying to get people to support the war and get involved in the war, and some of the propaganda with, on the German side, on the British side, on the American side. I mean, just all the things we told each other. We had a battle and we needed numbers.
That's right.
So we had to get people excited about this, like a football game.
And you were a communist.
Except you're probably going to get shot, or you'll be a communist and everybody will hate you.
Yeah, if you're not willing to die for it.
That definitely wasn't even the last time that that was employed, though. More recently, with the slogan "Support our troops."
Oh yeah.
And it kind of distracts people away from the actual agenda of the military and what we're doing in those foreign countries.
Yep.
Because it more so just makes people focus on supporting our troops. Like, what, you don't support the troops? Oh, well, you're anti-American.
You're not a patriot or whatever. Yeah. And I don't want to say this thing loud as I could possibly ever say. I support every single human being that's ever served in the military.
Absolutely.
And I wish and pray, and from the bottom of my heart, that you get taken care of if something happens to you.
Absolutely.
Because you fought for something that might have been just a boardroom discussion, like how to sell stock.
Yeah.
And to put human beings and American people in that situation because you just want to make more money, or some gambling game you're playing as some big CEO, fuck you, you're not the American.
Yeah, and so it's not the individuals who are doing it, which is how they sell the support our troops. That's a great way to start, because it's a perfect example of what we're talking about here. It's not that to be against those people. The concept of support our troops breeds the mentality that ignore everything else that's going on, don't question it, just
support
get in line
and shoot that direction.
Yeah, just support the troops and be happy about what we're doing. We don't even know what we're doing, but be happy about it, support it, put the sticker on the back. Otherwise, you're anti-American when we're going to stone you to death. You know, I mean, that's a perfect example of it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you're going or what the objective of this military engagement is. Just
don't ask. Support them. That's all. And,
be a soldier.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that blindly leads our culture and a lot of the things that the people follow in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's just the beginning.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
That's just the tip of the iceberg.
So I think this segues great into something I wanted to raise a topic for discussion. One of my favorite books I ever read was Media Control by Noam Chomsky, and that's another big main idea that he brings up is that tagging of the term of sheeple and what they are. He calls them the bewildered herd. And, the people in power who have money, the decision makers that manipulate media, their goal is to keep the bewildered herd afraid and pointed in the right direction for their own gains.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's exactly.
I always like that terminology a lot.
And that's exactly what propaganda does: is it blinds you, and you follow this, and don't question anything. Don't question the ladder or why you're following it. Just follow.
Yeah, but another aspect of the propaganda that always kind of like blows my mind, I guess more than anything, is the advertising and selling of products.
Oh yeah,
through propaganda.
Yeah, consumer marketing.
Is that what it's called?
That's the term I'm coining for. Yeah, and you see it everywhere, and especially the one that seems to be. So it can be argued that so they're telling me I need to buy this laundry detergent because it
works better than the hand of God washing it for himself.
Fluffy bunnies will fly out of your clothes after you wash them with this Tide whatever. Okay, that's one thing. Maybe it can be argued that doesn't harm anybody. But there is marketing that does harm people. And the perfect example of that is Big Pharma. Marketing drugs to people who have no idea, have no medical background. I mean, you and me sitting at home getting a commercial sent to us telling us we need this to sleep better or we need this so that we'll feel better. It's kind of like Elon.
It's a form of manipulation.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's like Elon Musk coming out talking to somebody who's an artist or something and explaining to him the electrical engineering behind building a battery. You could suggest and make anything you want sound good to that person because they don't know about the history of.
They don't know the bad side.
They don't know anything about it, so it's easy to sound convincing and sell propaganda that sells the product. When to not in a negative connotation, but to somebody who's completely ignorant about it. I mean,
I think it can be viewed as very negative. America is actually one of the very few countries that drug companies are able to advertise directly to.
Yep.
And the way that they pose their commercials, this laundry list of symptoms that lead to, consuming their drug.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm up late at night, red-eyed, watching TV, I'm like, oh my God, I've got that. Oh, I'm like, maybe I should get on this Lunesta or this, and then chase this flying, glowing butterfly.
Yep.
I think it's terrible. I have a huge problem with it. It's terrible for society, and it just plays on keeping people scared and then getting them on the drug. It's like, it's like Brave New World.
Yeah, and after years and years of this, and the way I see it, it's expanded out to change our very mentality and how we approach and handle problems with our bodies and with ourselves. You hear about so many people who have taken a pill for something. I mean, I pick something: a headache, the flu, sinus infection. Anything.
A boner.
Yeah, sure, if you want one. Yeah. Well, you don't want, whatever.
Well, people take them for boners. I'm just throwing out the information.
They do. After so many years of the concept being pumped into people's head and advertised and marketed into their head that your problems can be alleviated by something as simple as swallowing one pill, people start to get lazy or start to demand that there be a simple solution for all things. It's almost like to tone it down a little bit as a metaphor or analogy for it. Think about how annoying it is when you order something online that's not from Amazon. Wait, this isn't going to come free 2-day shipping? Are you kidding me? You know how long Amazon's been doing this? We've been desensitized to and what's the word looking for? We come
acclimated,
and we come to
expect what is given and no more.
Yes,
we question nothing. Get in line.
We are
shoot
entitled.
That direction.
We become entitled to, wait a minute, if I can take a pill and it makes me go to sleep. Why can't I take a pill to make me feel happier because I feel depressed? Why can't I take a pill to make me lose weight? Why can't I take a pill to give me energy?
Make me feel better.
Yeah,
and that's all very American. I feel our culture has been geared towards that immediate gratification.
Yep, that's the problem.
And nurturing the person we want to be instead of who we really are.
Oh, yeah.
That one too. You know, the one thing I wanted to say earlier when you were talking about the pharmaceutical thing and the advertising in the United States, I don't understand. Well, okay, I'll retract that. I completely understand why, but I think that pharmaceuticals, if you look at the damage they have done as a whole, should be in the same category as cigarettes are when it comes to advertising.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
We can't advertise. When's the last time you saw a cigarette commercial on TV? Probably like 1982.
Long time.
And I, you know what I mean? I think this late night thing, and then, you know, because they have so much money, they just got to blow it on advertising because we're making trillions off of your harm, you know, destroying your bodies. Mm-hmm. So they have to spend it. So this is just another, like a tax write-off basically to make these ginormous commercials they can run constantly. And it's just, but I fall back in the cigarette thing. I think they should be removed from the ability to advertise like that completely.
But there's too much money in the hands and the back of it.
Well, that's what I say. I know exactly why. I mean, cigarettes and tobacco industry held out as long as they could, and they gave up because they started saying it's going to cost us more money.
Very American, though.
Very
right?
American, but I think they made a financial decision to go along with the game and go, you know what? We still got everybody hooked. We'll still get new smokers.
Yep.
Okay, we'll back down.
I mean, I think big tobacco's got to be like one of the industries that America was almost founded on. You know, it's got to be like one of the earliest businesses.
It really is.
Yep.
And I was in a really interesting conversation with a friend of mine about this just recently, you know, nicotine advertisement. And she just recently relocated to Ottawa. She's been up there for a year now. And one of the things that she mentioned is cigarettes. And what I'll bring up first is she goes, well, you know how you go to a liquor store or a gas station, when you're paying, what are you faced with? You're faced with a wall of boxes of tobacco, all different forms, the new e-cigs, chew tobacco, cigarettes. She says, well, in Canada, it's all covered by a white wall. You can't see anything. You don't see branding.
Wow.
You see nothing like that. You actually have to go out of your way to get those cigarettes.
You got to know what you want specifically and know what's back there.
And that's not, you know, staring you down. And then something else that conversation led to is obviously, you know, they have healthcare. You know, it's almost free healthcare. But if you have like, you know, a really bad health issue and you have multiple surgeries, there's going to be, you know, something you're going to have to shell out of pocket for. So we were all sitting around. There was 4 of us on my patio. Everybody was smoking a cigarette but me. And what she brought up is she says at that point it becomes a social situation because, you know, you might smoke that cigarette now, but 10 years from now, if you keep making these bad choices for your health, I'm going to be the one paying for it, not you. We're paying taxes. We cover your health care.
And so we breathe your secondhand smoke.
There's that social aspect of it that we don't, that social stigma that we don't have on it here. You know, we have a lot of social stigmas, but a lot of them, they're placed in the wrong spot, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas something like that, like that's something bad for your health. It's bad for my health if I'm around it. And it's going to be bad for, you know, me paying the taxes for your health issue.
Yeah.
So it's a social stigma at that point. And I thought that was genius. I mean, it's looking out for your citizens' well-being, which we do not do in this country.
That is a huge disconnect with who America is.
We probably don't think about that because we don't really have a social, you know,
no, it's because we're built around industry. It's all about screwing us. As to be an American citizen is to be a whore. Yeah. They are after your money. A consuming whore.
Little pigs in the trough.
But no questions, no deliberation, no kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the biggest distractions. So I don't know if we're done on that topic. One of the biggest distractions that has always annoyed me, and even in a personal way too, regarding propaganda and how things are sold, is the whole American lifestyle. The family life, the 2.5 kids, the house,
white picket fence,
the white picket fence, the degree, and you have to do all of these things. Not that I mentioned degree last, but I want to be careful with that, because furthering one's education is not something I would ever talk down. That's the most important thing of all.
Yes, engineer.
Yeah,
but it is
however,
all paying into the system.
It is, and
is.
Worse than that, if you think about every single one of the steps, I take that back. Every single one of the checkpoints along the lifestyle, they are all geared to make money for someone else and to put you in debt. The house, we live 30 years if you're lucky to pay your house off in a massive amount of debt. I mean, a massive amount of debt. Buy a new car. You want to drive a new car? That's debt. Not many people can afford to go buy a new Toyota Camry for $30,000 cash. The kids, well, you'll be paying for children your entire life, and you'll increase your carbon footprint 100-fold by having them.
And since you brought that up, I wonder if you don't have insurance, I wonder what the dollar amount is behind having a child in a hospital. I wonder how much you pay. Like, you have that kid and you come home and you're $5,000 in debt for having the kid. Like,
wow,
I'm curious about that too.
I have
not to derail the conversation, but
I have heard that there are to speak on that. I have heard that there are a lot of methods by which to get medical coverage for mothers who are having children if they don't have it. So like basically they'll cover or make it very cheap for you to have the baby. They'll check out the baby, and then after that, the baby's healthy. Okay, take it home. Now you're off of this. So we covered you for this, and that's your coverage to make sure.
I guess now that you mentioned that, it can't be too bad because there's plenty of low-income people having plenty of kids.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Well, even if you don't have the money, you're still going to have the child one way or another.
You know what the funnest thing you can do for free is?
What's that?
Procreate.
Well, the process thereof, not following through.
I didn't say raising. I said making.
The process.
Rodney Dangerfield said it best. The best part about kids is making them.
Exactly. So, to combine that with, on top of it, your college education, your high school education, if your parents are paying. I mean, who doesn't come out? Well, some don't, but many come out with their degree and whatever they got it in, and with a mountain of debt. Credit card debt. You want that now. You can't have it, so charge it. I mean,
and I think that goes back to that lifestyle thing that, advertising in America, and I really wanted to touch on this too. Advertising in America, since about the time printed newspapers started coming out, advertising in America really has gone crazy. Mm-hmm. And in the early 20th century, when we started going to radio and things like that, that was more, to me, radio was the first step into media. And I don't know if it's a confusing term in some directions or whatever. To me, that's what it feels like, that sort of change into the
it was an instant
electrical, instant kind of connection kind of thing. And there was a ton of stuff there. And the advertising of it has, these advertising agencies, these companies are selling all these different things, whether it's a new washer and dryer. In the 40s when they ran advertisements for that, people were like, oh my God, there's something that washes your clothes. That was like, that was like discovering, an acid trip on the greatest day of your life or something, just
changed our world, changed our lives.
And changed our lives. And okay, so you can argue the point of like, well, did they told you it would make things better, and look how great it's been. So you can argue that, but you can be like, yeah, but you're shoving everything down our throats because you want to sell more of them. And and if you start selling less, people just raise the prices on things. Yeah. So that's the world that we live in. But the whole like syndication of like, you need this, you need that, and just the style of like, either you're not cool, you're not clean enough, you're not smart enough, you're not good looking enough, your boobs aren't big enough, you're not tall enough. All these things that are sold to us are sold with a package of products to help us cope with
achieve
them.
And going along those lines, it's blown me away over the last couple of decades that how big the interest has become with people following celebrities.
It's retarded.
And the rich and famous. Yeah, it's retarded. The thing is, though, it sells glamour. It sells
magazines.
What you want for your life. And it feeds into consumerism. You see these people who do these things, who own these things, who walk around and wear these things, who drive these things, and you want some of it. You want
to be
all
like
of it.
the Joneses or whatever.
It's
that
the
whole
ultimate
term.
Joneses, though, because
Right?
it's completely unattainable. And
Yes.
but it keeps you, distracted, following.
Keeps you distracted.
Keeps you consuming, and you think that you're just harmlessly watching all of this stuff. Meanwhile, every time the Entertainment Tonight ends, if that's even still on, I don't even know if that's still on the air, but every time it ends, you walk away feeling a little bit inside yourself thinking, dang, as I turn away from the television, the boob tube, and I look over at my house, and my house doesn't sparkle like theirs. There isn't a Rolls Royce in my garage. I'm not destroying the new Lamborghini because
You're not an episode of Cribs.
Yeah, exactly,
And
because I can afford it.
I feel that's by design. You look around, you're like, shit, my life sucks.
Yes.
Look what I don't have.
Look what I don't
and
have.
that's the selling point. Look what I don't have. And that whole distraction between our existence is a very poignant part of moral compass, I believe, and general structure of humans to get along.
Okay.
Because we
It's a
have
very
used that
deep
to
cause.
classify everyone. Like, I know people who think that someone who doesn't make $50,000 a year is a street dwelling hooker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. We've almost given numbers to what's acceptable for you to fit into the social standard of a normal human being.
Sure, and people wouldn't even know to have a reference to develop these echelonistic, if that's a word, standards that you just mentioned there, without being able to see it, right? You don't know how far you can push a pendulum until you get out there and
Right.
push the dang thing, right? Well, that's what they've been doing, is setting that bar higher and higher and higher and higher.
So it takes more and more and more money for you to achieve it. So
That's
they sell
right.
more products along the process,
And if
along
you-
the pathway.
Yeah, and you're going to try and buy as much as you can to get there. And if you can't get there, you're going to feel bad about it and do nothing else about it.
And if you do get there, there's always another yacht.
Yeah, and even if you don't get there, you're going to keep watching.
Exactly.
That's the
Damn
other
it,
point.
he's got 2 yachts.
Yeah, so maybe
I'm going to get me another yacht.
maybe you can't afford what you're seeing on the Rich and Famous or whatever, but in between that show, you're going to watch the Lunesta commercial, or you're going to watch the local supermarket commercial.
You'll be
anything.
consuming all along the way.
That's it. That's it. So no matter what, the house always wins.
The household. Yeah. And it's crazy, but you see all these products, and some people, I think a lot of people, and I don't think it's an educational thing.
No,
I think
it's not.
With a lot of people, and I don't want to sound, I feel like I almost sound horrible saying this, but I think a lot of people just have nothing better to do with their lives.
That could be it.
But sit and watch TV or think about, what do I need, or stand around.
Definitely.
The great distraction, this whole, George, I'll say it again, George Carlin said it too. If you want to believe the American dream, you got to be asleep to believe it.
Yeah.
And all of these things that we've made into this puzzle, these are all pieces that you need to exist to be a credible American or a credible human being in 2017. Don't ask me where that came from.
Good job, man.
I'm time traveling.
Yeah.
But, just
stuck
this,
in the past too, Thomas.
in the past.
Thinking of Napoleon Dynamite, dude. Man, if I'd have made it out of Take State.
I could throw a football over that mountain. But we've developed this level of what you have to be, what you have. I know people who look down on others who don't have a brand new car.
Yeah.
And I want to just punch them in the mouth,
Seriously. Yes.
Those people have completely bought in.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, I wanted to go back to the comment you made. It's not just educated people. I don't think education is what separates. It can help you see the propaganda and be aware of your circumstances and be like, man, I'm really getting sucked into this crap and it's getting the better of me, right? I think it lies more in how one has chosen or not chosen to define their ego. And if they have no practice in their life to reduce their value that they put on their ego and building their own ego, then they have no freedom to get away from it. So if nobody ever taught them or explained to them, hey, you can change how important you portray yourself in this world, put the prioritization that you put on it, the value that you put on it, you can adjust that. Well, then it just keeps going whichever way the only input you have tells you it should go. And
there's no barometer.
No, there's no way of measuring it, right? You have to, worse off, if you're not even aware that that's what they're playing off of, then how would you even know that you needed to maybe try and that's where you needed to attack it, maybe to reduce that drive.
But that's being able to be awake enough to see and understand a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I think that when I deal with the average general public, I feel like a vast majority of people are believing it all pretty well.
Yeah, it sucks. Definitely as the generations roll on,
yes,
there's more and more because they get to us they get to the people at a younger and younger age. We've talked about this. I don't even want to use the term millennials. Just the young. If you have a little cousin, who's just born, or a little sister or something or whatever, and they're 6 years old right now, or they were just born today, they will never know a world without social media, and they will never know a world without.
Facebook's been around longer than I've been alive. Yeah, somebody's going to be saying that.
That's
soon.
right.
Somebody does now.
They will not have known a world without 900 television stations on your satellite or cable TV or whatever.
Right.
They will never know a world without this high focus on achieving what looks like success. That whole definition of success will be whatever it is now, Kardashians or some other, idiot that just has money that didn't succeed or achieve anything in life.
It's a bit like desensitization to it, right?
Yes.
And then as that happens throughout the generations, it becomes more heavily ingrained in American culture.
Absolutely.
More widely accepted and more widely followed.
Yep.
Well, I mean, things that our government's getting away with right now wouldn't stand 50 years ago. I mean, people would have been in the streets rioting over.
And the reason they don't question that now is because they've been taught to not question things.
Yeah. Just take it for what it is. It's not something you need to worry about. It's to support our troops. Is there something wrong with you? You don't want to be rich and famous? What's wrong with you?
That
right?
Conditioning, it's working. People are more interested in voting for American Idol than they are for the president, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's more important to more people's lives.
Yeah. So that's why clowns win presidencies now. I mean, the bigger show you put on, the more important it is.
Right.
And same thing with the
Idiocracy.
governor. Yeah, it's a President Gamachos, dude. It's the same thing with our state governments too. I mean, the people that we've selected. I mean, over the years to be our governors for our states is the ones who put on these crazy shows, and that's just ridiculous. I mean,
well, they say no publicity is bad publicity. So I think
that's the problem.
That's the problem, and I think a lot of these politicians are starting to learn that. Wait a minute, I'm in the public eye. I'm in the media. I'm in the.
If Paris Hilton can do it.
Yeah, I'm in the celebrity eye here. I'm sharing that spot. So they can, if they have controversy or they got caught in a bathroom with somebody or some weird thing, it just makes more people know who they are.
Blows me away, man. Blows me away. No matter what they do, it doesn't matter.
More people who know who you are, Ben, the more you will have. Because the more people.
All it is about followers. They're not negative followers. They're not positive followers. They're just followers.
Just a number.
I just need more likes on Facebook. That's it. Then I too can control the sheeple.
Yeah. And I think that's a very sad thing that we're seeing now is with kids today. I mean, I think back when I was in high school and stuff, what made me happy or what made me socially acceptable or not or whatever the game was, about being like having friends or being liked or just having a good like mental health, especially as a young child, teenager, things like that. It's a rough time.
As a teenager, yeah.
And now you've got all the social media and like, so, your friend Becky shows up at school today and she's got 8,000 followers and you only got 800.
Yeah.
This is tearing young people's lives apart and it means nothing.
Yep.
Like
nothing.
it's so meaningless that people are committing suicide because of things online or something somebody said in social media, which I can kind of understand that because now there's something negative that somebody said about you that the whole world can see. That's pretty dramatic in general. But again, the aspect is like, what does that really do? I
don't know, but the only thing I could equate stuff like that to is, back in our day, if somebody had hung a terrible sign that said something really private or embarrassing about you on your locker at school, everybody saw it. You'd be like, oh man, that's horrible. Now everybody knows. Well, that's kind of the equivalent, a digital equivalent, I think, of that.
That's true.
And if everybody in your school or whatever is following these same, they're all friends. Like you said, they really do have like 800, 1,000, 1,800 friends on Facebook, which blows me away. I don't even think I've ever met that many people in my entire life, let alone adding and they're not friends with all of them. They just add everybody in their school. Mm-hmm. Well, when you start throwing things up and they all see, it's like, oh, I know that person. They're in my, history class or whatever. And that's terrible or what. That's what that whole cyberbullying thing came about.
And the sad part is too, now it's documented. Yeah. So like, like if you're a kid and you say something stupid because you're a freaking kid, that could scar you for years and years and years because that can always be pulled up or this post can be.
The other side of that same coin is it's the size of the voice grew too. When we were young and somebody said something messed up to us, more than likely it was maybe them two of their friends and me and one of my friends, and
Right.
that was all who was there to hear it. There was no other way to hear it.
Yeah.
Now when they hear it, the whole school sees it on
So
some
600
social media.
people hate 'em.
Yeah, so all of a sudden 600 people are laughing at you and you're like, wait a minute, this got way worse, way faster.
True.
I don't know how we got into the cyberbullying thing, but that's a real problem
it is definitely a propaganda of media, the way
Absolutely.
that people manipulate their friendships, their relationships. I mean, all kinds of stuff. I mean, nowadays it's more hurtful for you today for me to say, well, I'm going to unfriend you on Facebook.
Why would you do that to me, Thomas?
See, look
I'll
how
go
it
for- I'll
affected. Look how it instantly affected him, Glenn. Look at that
I'll go from
sorrow
100
in his eye.
I'll
Man,
go from 165 to 164, man. Don't do that to me.
The tear just rolling down his cheek.
But people would rather have you steal their wallet than unfriend you on Facebook. I mean, if you look
No
at
joke.
the grandeur of these two events, whatever. I mean, that's to me that blows my mind, and that is,
joke.
I think, a prime example of what we've done personally to ourselves in social media. So I call it social propaganda.
Ironically enough, I was going to comment on that. We seem to use the same medium and conduits that they use.
Who's
so not
they?
only who's ever controlling the propaganda,
Oh,
who's
yeah.
ever sending out the propaganda.
Well, yeah,
we don't
They're
have
the servers.
Yeah, we can't get on TV and make our own commercials to send things to yourselves or your friends, right?
Yeah, unless you pay for advertising.
Unless you pay a lot of money for advertising. But no, I mean, not many people are going to do that. However, the other way that they reach us is through the internet and through social media. Ironically enough, we also use that same medium to do our own communication. So it's interesting that I guess that's this era would be the first time that the propaganda is being sent by the same medium and communication path that we use on an everyday basis as it is. This would, in my opinion, this would be like if we went back to the 80s or 90s or whatever when we only had landline phones. And we're on our landline phones and you're talking to grandma and all of a sudden Nabisco comes on and they're like, hey, don't you think grandma would love... Don't you remember grandma's peanut butter cookies? They're infiltrating the medium by which you communicate and do normal things that didn't involve them at all in the beginning, right?
I think that's just
kinda
how
weird.
technology has progressed. Those avenues. I think social media is just a new avenue that has recently opened, really.
Yeah.
Because of the very first one that came through was like radio, right? And then
Yeah.
that was the first means of,
Yeah, but we had no control over that, though. We just turned it on and listened. It was a one-way track. That medium was still like TV. That's what I'm saying. Is
I
now
get
they're
what you mean,
using our mediums. They're on our turf. They're in our minds and in our private lives.
Get out of my brain, man!
We can't control it. Before, you could turn off the radio. Well, if you want to talk
and
to...
it was a one-way street.
Yeah. Before
Yeah.
Now, if you want to talk to your cousin in across the country, you're on Facebook sending a message, and at the same time, you guys were talking about Clorox liquid bleach. Well, here's an advertisement on the right side of your Facebook page that that shows you Clorox liquid bleach. I mean, they're in every private avenue and medium that we have to communicate.
There is no such thing as privacy anymore.
Agreed.
Anything anything that's digital is recorded.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing I was saying earlier about, like kids and stuff. Like everything is documented now.
Yeah.
But even though it's documented, you look at people who are running for Senate that, and it's still documented, or somebody does something that's completely documented, and the next thing you know, they're a senator or a
What was that one guy I
congressman or
heard? I don't watch news, so I
Good for you.
Yeah,
Good
I don't have any
for you.
publicly broadcasted information in my home other than
Sweet.
the internet. But the
NPR is kind of good.
NPR. I like some shows from NPR.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily. I don't like news.
They
However,
are a propaganda machine, man.
Which one is?
NPR?
Oh, yeah,
have you
NPR.
listened to that?
What I actually meant to say was PBS, the TV thing.
Okay.
I like
when I watch
PBS.
television, the only thing I really watch is PBS.
Yeah, I only do shows and movies, and that's it. No, anyway, beside the point. Oh man, and I completely forgot my point.
Oh my
with
God,
that
he
one.
lost his train of thought. The most sober guy in the room.
Never mind then.
Another good point on the propaganda that's in our lives that we're getting really pounded with today is the gun control and these gun laws that they're trying to push. And
is that ever propaganda?
oh my, it's pounded.
Just make up any angle. It's just ridiculous. And what's worse is most of the people that I've met. So we're all in California. Being in California, we're the state itself is a very anti-gun state. However, many, and make no mistake, many of us are super into guns. I mean, it's a hobby. We don't. I mean, and what's worse is I don't really know. Maybe a handful of people of my friends that are into that hunt. So they don't kill anything with the guns. We go put holes in paper, and it blows me away being a Californian. And I grew up this way, so I know both sides of it. Most of the people I've met out here who dislike. Strongly have a strong distaste for guns, have never even shot one or held one. They don't even know what the whole culture is about, or forget the culture. It's just a fun thing. It's no different than, anyway, I'm not going to get off like that topic or whatever. We'll just say that for another episode. But nevertheless, absolutely. And we see things on TV that again, expose people to an angle that they want to sell.
A view that they need you to think
That's
for
right.
a reason
to
later on.
people who are otherwise completely ignorant and naive on it. And it's not their own fault. It's because we've always been showing this side being in a left state and in an anti-gun state.
Yeah, that's what propaganda is.
Exactly. But and it's really, it's definitely a good example.
Right now we're being steered to give away our Second Amendment, man.
Oh, yes.
That's serious.
Yeah.
It's just going to get worse. I mean, the freedom, they're passing laws all over the place where it's illegal to congregate in groups of more than 6 or different
that's
things like
crazy.
that. I mean, that to me, that is way more insulting than the Second Amendment thing. I mean, the gun control thing. But it's still the same thing.
They're attacking our Constitution on multiple levels.
But I grew up in Indiana, and in Indiana, tons of people I knew hunted. I grew up with tons of people who had guns, whatever. Guns were not a big deal. Mm-hmm. I want to say guns were probably like drinking in Ireland.
When you're 9.
When you're 9. As long as you can belly up to the bar and don't get cocky, we'll give you another beer. And so for me, I never really had a stigmatism of guns being bad.
Yeah.
The worst thing that ever happened in the guns that I was ever involved with as a kid was I shot a BB gun into something and it ricocheted back and hit me in the groin.
Oh yeah. Or he broke a window out.
I broke a window.
Man.
Yeah. Being a dumb 9-year-old shooting a BB gun or whatever.
Yep.
But I wasn't afraid of them. I respected them. I understood them. But I think, when I moved to California and started listening to a lot of people's argument against guns, it sounded like they were basically just regurgitating something that somebody else had said to them.
Yeah, because they had no personal experience.
Yeah, or they had seen on TV or whatever. And then it goes back to the media, the manipulation of television. We believe anything that the TV tells us. Yeah. Just like Facebook. Anything you read on Facebook has got to be true.
Yep.
And that's how we feel about television.
Nobody even knows what the sources are. They don't even state the sources anymore for anything. They don't need to. People just...
I read this one time.
As long as they can read it or watch it in like less than 36 seconds or something,
it is real.
Then it's real. That's all the further people will look into it, man.
That was a pretty great one that I saw floating around on Facebook.
Oh my God.
It was a meme talking about defrosting your windows in winter and how to what you want to do is boil a pot of water, fill it in a bucket, then just throw the bucket on the windshield to thaw your window. And a couple days later, I saw some posts like people raving, pissed off about destroying their
Shattering the
windshields.
windshield.
Oh, stupid.
When I was in high school, I had my...
I deserve it.
I had
But it's buying into that information.
Yeah, that's right. When I was in high school, I had an electronics teacher, and he. This was back then. The internet was very new. Basically,
so new that you had to be a programmer.
The Netscape Navigator days, man. And basically, you only had it in your local public library if you had a good library.
If you couldn't crank the car, you couldn't drive it.
That's right. And so to prove this point, but what I liked about it and why I always remembered it is because it was very forward thinking, and maybe he got it from somewhere else, but it was very forward thinking on his behalf. He one day we were in class and he had printed up because we had no internet in the classroom, obviously. He had printed up a list of solutions to a problem that he had searched for, and his problem was, how do you remove the scratches from an audio CD? Thanks. Well, we had audio CDs back then too. Yes, they were very prevalent. And he starts reading them, and it was everything you could imagine. It was take a light sandpaper to it, and just rub it in a counterclockwise manner, or use some shoe polish, or just all kinds of things that some of which might have worked, but others were
there
just
toothpaste involved?
Yeah,
it seems like there's always toothpaste in some of these.
Toothpaste actually is a very mild abrasive around
That's true.
Yeah, so I've used that to polish things before. But anyway, nevertheless, his point was, after he went through this list of ridiculousness, and this was before the YouTube DIY days. I mean, we didn't have, did your Xbox overheat? We'll take the motherboard out and stick it in the oven at 375 for about 13 minutes, and it'll be great. You'll reflow the solder on the BGA for the graphics. Anyway, whatever. We didn't have these wacky, things that we could see maybe work or maybe not. But his point for the whole instruction was, don't believe everything you read on the internet. It was a very good thing to teach, 15-year-old kids.
Yeah, and I think,
and it is today as well.
It still is today, but nobody's teaching it.
Right. I feel like nowadays, though, the bar has been raised with that. One of the most interesting news articles I read was about, I think there were a couple millennials. It was a couple, a guy and his girlfriend, and their main goal was to get a viral YouTube video. Somewhere, dude read that you could fire a gun at a book, and that book would stop the bullet. So he convinced his girlfriend on video to fire a .50 caliber Desert Eagle at his chest
Holy
cavity while he put a book in front of his chest.
I hope it was, Civil War.
She killed him on camera, and he was trying to get YouTube likes.
Wow.
Sign of the times.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's also survival of the fittest, but
I think that's a Darwin
Natural
Award.
selection. I'm sure that'll be on there.
Terrible that people, the things people will do, and there's no shortage of YouTube video channels out there that are nothing but people doing dumb stuff because people want to watch it.
Dumb stuff.
People
want to watch dumb stuff, and that television's the same way. I mean,
Yeah.
And you look at like
reality TV.
Reality TV. Oh my god! You look at print media. Like when a magazine sold in the United States, and I don't know what it is in other countries, but any basic magazine that's sold in the United States, everything from GQ to Rolling Stone to whatever, is written at a 10th grade reading level.
It's because you're
That's
reading on
an
the toilet,
actual
man.
fact. That's an actual fact.
It's because you're reading it on the toilet. It's got to be simple.
So newspapers and
that,
everything,
yeah.
Unless it's like, the New Yorker or whatever.
So what does that say about
journalists?
journalists? You must be capable
They just
of writing
talk
at
too
a 10th
damn much.
grade level.
Right?
I like it. Makes sense, though. I mean, it's simple, dumbs it down.
Journalists. Those are some of the worst people, too, in some regards, because a lot of these people think just because they have an opinion that they need to tell other people on their media source what to think or how to feel about something.
Just pick up the newspaper and read
Instead
that.
of just,
see.
I think, I don't know if news was ever about relaying information. Now it's about relaying opinions or entertainment or a direct motive for the people involved in viewing or something. And like I said, if you look at like the television media, at this point everybody realizes that most of television that we see, especially in America, these media groups are owned by like a half a dozen people. There's a very small amount of people. And if you go back in time, and I always play the numbers game, and I think a numbers game is really important to play when you look at propaganda, media, all these sort of things that we're doing to reach out to the people, because now we're reaching out at such a mass number that we have to have computers compute the way we reach people to get in their heads. Back in the day, it wasn't like that. There was a small group of people who made decisions about media, whether it was newspaper, television, radio, whatever, what you heard, what you saw, what was directed, whether it was the military giving you information, salespeople giving you information for their cause. But at the end of the day, it was so controlled at that point, there was a small entity of people who did it, like 6 major people who owned most of the media.
Yep.
So they really had the say. So you got like 6 people in, say, 1960 telling everybody what to say, but our population is, 180 million at that point or something like that, half of what it is today.
Yeah.
And so now the numbers have gone up, and all these outlets have gone up, but that control span has not really changed.
No, they're all still owned by a small group of people who are all out for the same thing. Yeah,
they just control more people. They have more power. They have more money. They have more outlets. They have more lobbyists. They have more everything.
Yeah, I've had this argument a number of times with a few people I know, but yeah, exactly. You have to question everything, and you have to remember that nobody is putting anything on the news, on a television show, on a movie, without standing to gain something. It's been
approved too.
Yeah, sure. If you don't watch and you don't believe, you will stop watching. And if they don't sell you something you want to see, and you don't watch, they don't exist anymore.
Yep.
So their whole motivation behind what they put out there every day in the news is that you'll keep watching. Because if they don't put out what you want to see or what they think you want to see, that you'll keep staring at in awe. It's a shock and awe campaign every single day on the news.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't keep feeding that to your mind, you'll stop watching. They cease to exist.
And I think the psychology of humans that everybody should know at this point. If you don't know this, I just know what rock you've been living under.
Tell me, Thomas.
We as people do not really enjoy good news and good information as a whole. We'd rather hear how somebody got shot. We'd rather hear about somebody's drama as a whole. I'm not saying us here.
There's no news like bad news.
There's no news like bad news. And so it's just like you just keep making it worse and worse. Every time that I have to accidentally watch the news, all it talks about is how many people got shot.
Yeah, and this is why I don't watch the news.
And there again, that's pushing the gun control issue.
Sure. See, and exactly. So that's a prime example of propaganda, and the big media, the big bosses of the media, being lobbied into government and controlling government very heavily at this point to start to always inundate these ideologies into children. We've talked about this before. If you start telling a 2-year-old something and you tell them the same thing until they're 10, it's really hard to make them not believe that anymore.
Right. Look at the churches, man.
This is how religion exists.
Racism, all of those things. It's what people are taught and told. And we as a society, and I'm going to say America in its bubble, because that's what I know.
Oh, yeah.
If we don't make some sort of change soon, we're just going to be a group of absolute horrible monsters. I mean, I think most people in America today are. I mean, I go to the mall. I mean, I can walk up and hold the door for an old lady, and she almost gives me a look like I'm some disgusting pervert. Yeah. I was opening the door for an old lady. I have morals, and I respect my elders. Or I'll go into a door and there'll be somebody right in front of me, and they'll almost slam it in my face. And it's just like this relationship that we have with each other is being controlled and manipulated to the point where everybody is their own, everybody's special, everybody's amazing, everybody has all these things they want or they need, or they're taught to be this one thing. Like the world doesn't exist. We can trade in our friends. We can resell our relationships, everything. Throwaway culture, and it's all based on this media that we're fed to believe this giant dream. If we don't wake up and see this as what it really is at some point soon, it's going to be too late. And I feel like the generation that we are all in right now might be one of the last ones who remembers a world before this.
Yeah.
And that is important.
It might be time to resurrect and bring back that ideology from the 60s. Mr. Leary, turn on,
free
tune
love,
in, drop out, disconnect yourself from these mediums that are poisoning us. They're ruining everything.
Yeah.
And doing it only for their own gain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
It's definitely, I mean, like I said, I mean, as far as kids and learning things, I mean, I saw a lot of stuff real early. I mean, did you guys see a lot of things when you were younger and teenagers, or were you just like, wait a minute?
I feel like this intended segmentation is part of the distraction. I think by keeping people separate from one another, you keep them weak.
Fighting amongst themselves.
And I feel like sports teams are an excellent example of that.
I didn't even think to bring that one up.
That's a great distraction.
Excellent example of that.
So silly.
And, the way that we promote how we live here, everybody has their own apartment. Everybody is, everybody's alone. I think
Separated.
it helps to install that feeling of discontentment amongst the masses.
Sure.
Well, because every human being is starved for human attention. We want human interaction. And I think things that install that feeling of loneliness and separation, keep people weak.
But do you think that's a planned thing to make people weaker? Because I believe it is.
I definitely do. I think a lot of our food options also endorse that. Whereas I know with like European cultures, food is a everybody comes together, you social. Congregate, you eat meals slowly, you have tapas, you have drinks, whereas here it's go to McDonald's and get your food in a bag in a drive-through.
Don't get out of the car, go back to your box, and everybody's box has a TV.
And eat that poison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're touching on a huge topic. You have the
right.
I mean, our agricultural industry is beyond screwed up, man. I mean, we
Shaped
are
by those companies.
Well, you have
And it's our food. It's
And
not like it's important or anything.
the chemicals used for explosives are what go into fertilizing our food. They're selling us back the weapons that we use to kill people to feed our country. It's destroying our soil. So we have this slash and burn agriculture that's leaving dead zones across our country. Our farmland's going to be barren soon, and
that's a good. You bring up the farming thing. I wanted to mention that earlier too, as far as propaganda goes. We and I don't know what how the other states out there get this, but on a regular basis, California gets a lot of propaganda through the media in support of our farmers. And again, it's kind of like the support your troops thing. Why would you not want to support our local farmers? They grow farm fresh, vegetables and things. They feed us, right?
That was designed by Monsanto. And,
that's right.
And
the real truth of the matter is that these people want government handouts, these farmers. And then what they do is, since our ports along the West Coast here are right there in San Francisco and any other ports they can utilize, they take our freshly grown products and they sell them to China for way more money, because they will pay way more money for these freshly grown products. Californians don't even get a lot of that stuff. So it's not really, it's the same thing with gas too. I mean, all the gas that gets shipped out comes here. We should have the cheapest gas in the country, right? I mean,
so much of it comes from
it's
here.
all coming here, right? And it comes, or from here, one or the other. Yet they don't. So they sell you one idea, and then they use it for personal gain on the back end when you think you're supporting and doing the right thing. You don't know what those farmers are doing. You're not going into these farms and checking their books and seeing who they're selling a majority of their crop to. You don't know what's going on with it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And food is another massive world of propaganda. I mean, it's like McDonald's to everything else. Monsanto is I grew up in Indiana, and I have friends who are farmers today. Mm-hmm. And I hear stories about and I used to hear them in the 90s about how families weren't being allowed to use their own family recipe sort of seeds.
Yeah.
A lot of, you got to understand with farmers, especially when you go back before all these companies existed, if they wanted to plant something, you had to have a seed. There had to be a source. Yeah. And there was it was a thing that farming, and agriculture provided for itself, was the reseeding of itself and moving forward. So now that there's somebody in control of all that, and you can't grow this seed there, and we're going to test it, and if it doesn't have this one chemical that we put in there that we can identify it with, what's that chemical do to you when it goes through your body and you digest it? And so that manipulation, we've been sold to, not question it. Monsanto has been kicked out of how many countries other than the United States? I mean, why don't they just put Monsanto stickers on everything and say tested and approved by Monsanto? Pretty soon everybody be like, oh, that's a sign of quality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's create new standards and call them organic, and then start charging 3 times as much.
But that's what's been going on for 100 years. There's a USDA beef.
Yeah.
What does that really mean? It means it's got a sticker that's neat, and it's got the American flag on it. So if you're not patriotic, you better shut up and support it.
That's right. Else you'll be stoned. Awesome. Well, guys, I think we're going to end it on that note with the American meat.
That's American grown meat. Put it in your mouth, baby.
In and around your mouth.
Tasty.
Show notes and other info can be found at our website, greatdistraction.com. The Great Distraction is listed in iTunes, and we greatly appreciate it when our listeners take the time to look us up and leave us a 5-star rating and review. That helps our show grow and motivates us to continue producing content. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can do so using the email address, greatdistractionpodcast@gmail.com, or via our website. We're always interested in hearing any thoughts, comments, or questions from our listeners. Keeping up on the latest from us can be done in several different ways. You can add us to your favorite RSS feed tracker. The link is available on our website or in iTunes, or you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Great Distraction, one word, no space. As always, thank you for listening, and thank you for all the support.